Today on the Topping Show, Mayor Frey's clip of crying at George Floyd's funeral goes viral yet again. LGBTQ mob blocks a mother and daughter from attending a Christian rally. A priest video compilation shows why attendance is down. General Motors to invest $888 million into their next V8. And Ford recalls 1 million of their vehicles. All of that and much more on the Topping Show. Thank you everyone for taking the time to tune in today. Today's episode of the Topping Show is proudly sponsored by Topping Technologies. Topping Technologies is an IT value-added reseller and services company with a special proficiency in IT security. Heck, I see their founder at least twice a day. Guys, he's quite handsome and brilliant. He's me, you see, that's the joke. If you're an IT leader or business owner, you can reach out to the team at sales@toppingtechnologies.com. Also, still giving away a free Flamethrower with every IT purchase with Picatinny rail adapters so you can mount it to any standard AR-15 like all awesome accessories can be. Go to toppingtechnologies.com and click the Flamethrower button to learn more and see me shooting a Flamethrower. And lastly, trying to get to 6,000 subscribers by the end of the month, so if you can click that button and tell your friends, I would greatly appreciate it. Now going over to the business part podcast, you have some great automotive news. General Motors to invest $888 million into the next V8. Finally, some good news from General Motors, though it's a pretty low bar. Now, this is brought to us thanks to Motor1.com, specifically Adrian, who's a writer over there. And they say, quote, GM is keeping the V8 alive with a massive investment. The company is spending $888 million to bring the new V8 ready to market by 2027. And there you can see the glorious V8 with the Cadillac badging on it. Well, this is the Cadillac V series, which is the only good thing GM makes. Again, low bar, but also the only stick shift you can get from GM now is from the Cadillac CT4V Blackwing and CT5V Blackwing, which come with a twin turbocharged V6 or a V8 respectively. And I would say are marvels of engineering. If I won the lottery, I'd probably get at least one of those. I mean, hard to beat a good old V8 in the stick shift. It's sad that they killed the Corvette option years ago. That's a automatic and a hybrid now, which, yeah, disappointing to say the least. Now, Adrian says, quote, when automakers announce major investments lately, that money typically goes towards electrification, but not today. General Motors is spending $888 million at its Tonawanda site in Buffalo, New York to develop a 6th generation V8. The largest single investment in the company has ever made into the engine plant, a stark departure from an otherwise EV-focused auto industry. In return for the investment, New York will offer up to $16.96 million in tax credits, which, a good example is sometimes the tax credits help, but in this case, I'm not sure how much. You're going to spend $888 million, and New York is going to give you $16.96 million. Honestly, GM is stupid. However, why the hell are you doing any business in New York is beyond me. High taxation, high regulation. Why aren't you making that V8 somewhere where they'd actually appreciate your business? But I partially digress. Here you can see another angle of that glorious V8. Oh, it's a thing of beauty. Handmade American muscle. Again, it's the only GM product I would seriously contemplate buying these days. Granted, I'd have to win the lottery, but still. Now, they say, quote, GM plans to deploy the next engine in new full-size trucks and SUVs starting 2027, promised increased power. While that hasn't provided specific figures, the current 5.3-liter V8 produces 355 horsepower and 383 foot-pound of torque. The larger 6.2-liter V8 delivers 420 horsepower and 460 foot-pound of torque, and a supercharged Cadillac Escalade V belts out a maximum of 682 horsepower and 653 foot-pound of torque. They say the added power won't come at the expense of efficiency. GM says it can, reduce fuel consumption and emissions through, quote, new combustion and thermal management innovations. AKA more cylinder deactivation and other crap that can, ruin the longevity on the engine. It's sad how they have to make vehicles for the government, not for what the actual consumer wants. Now, they say that, quote, it hasn't confirmed whether any electrification will be involved, so the engine may remain purely gas-powered. The plant will be the second engine plant to produce the new V8 in early 2023. GM announced a $579 million investment in the Flint, Michigan operations to assemble the 6th generation engine and machinist block, crank, and head. At the same time, GM committed $12 million to Rochester operations facility in New York for intake manifolds and fuel rails, another $47 million to the Defiance operations in Ohio for block castings. They say by launching a new V8 in 2027, GM signals its intention to keep the 8-cylinder engine alive in its largest vehicles well into the 2030s, which, again, that's great news. Still, the company maintains its pledge to go all electric by the middle of next decade. I don't think so. It's a goal first announced in 2019 and reaffirmed as recently as October 2024. However, GM has left the door open for gas-powered vehicles beyond 2035, with CEO Mary Barra noting the company wants to, quote, be responsive to where the customer is. Looks like America wants the V8, which, yeah, of course. Now, half the comments here also say, bring back the Camaro, because GM famously killed that product. So that's rest in peace to Camaro. The last, I would say, affordable sports car with the stick shift. Cadillac, again, makes great sports cars, but they were a pretty penny. We're talking, I think the CT4V Blackwing starts at $75,000, and CT5V Blackwing starts at like $96,000. And of course, you add any options, it just balloons from there. But you do have some good, rare news from the automotive community. That would be nice if GM says we're also going to reaffirm the commitment to a stick shift, which, again, is all too rare in the automobile community as well. But I would say king for enthusiasts. But let me know your thoughts, because, as always, be fascinated to hear what you have to say. Now, going over to the Cultural Power podcast, you have an LGBTQ mob blocking a mother and daughter from attending a Christian rally. Now, this is brought to us thanks to End Wokeness. And without too much further ado, you see a mother and daughter, and then surrounded by so much peace and tolerance. Well, actually, no, that's the joke. Ironically, the side that says they're the most peaceful is the most violent. Now, this is a pretty diverse crowd. You have, now, of course, there's some neon-colored hair, which, again, what a lost business opportunity. Whoever's in the business of manufacturing hair and flags these days, like, the hair colors, they're doing great. But yeah, a lot of the creepy people surrounding mother and daughter, yelling right in their faces. Looks like you can't really go anywhere. So the police actually I thought they were sleeping for a minute there. After about a minute, the police actually get off their ass and go defend the mother and daughter. Yeah, so that's a rare thing. It's also in Seattle, so it's even rarer for, good things to happen. Much more people with short pink hair, of course. Exceedingly rare video of the police doing their job, which again is all too rare these days. Even in the state of Texas, or as we pronounce it, Texas, the police are allowed drag shows to go on in Denton, Texas at a bar, which again is illegal, but the police did it because they're lazy, and I would argue moralists as well in many instances. Now, this went pretty viral, got 1.6 million views as well as 37,000 likes. Now, one of the first comments comes to us thanks to Based Electrician, who, A+ for marketing, he is, in fact, a based electrician. He says, quote, there's nothing less American than a mob of unemployed losers allowed to intimidate a mother and a baby. Fix these woke Democrat hellholes. It got 876, 77, 79 likes, going up like a stock. Well, some stocks. X Van Fleet says communists are not atheists, they are antichrist, getting 1.6 thousand likes. He is a great profile to follow on X. Again, it's X Van Fleet, and he is a famous individual who escaped communism in China. Wall Street Mav says Seattle is a shit show, getting 537, makes 538 likes. Now, actually, well, Gunther Eagleman simply says Washington has fallen, getting 539 likes, 45 likes. Jeez Louise. This actually gives me a modicum of hope because, again, traditionally Seattle, extremely leftist place, consistently trying to ban guns and trample all over the Constitution and the Bill of Rights. It's one of those things where I'm surprised the police did anything. It's pretty rare. Winding the clock back a couple years ago, the police would have done nothing at all and just allowed the mother and daughter to be harassed even more and probably, most likely, hurt. So, maybe I'm looking at the glass half full here. Although to Seattle, perhaps I should say the pipe half full. Now, you also have Brian Moriano says, we are battling evil, getting 340 likes. Paul Zazupa says, this is a form of kidnapping. Everyone in the mob should have been arrested, getting 505 likes. Scrolling down, you have Redacted saying she probably walked into the mob to start stuff, getting 54 likes, and a contrarian statement, getting 317 responses, the most viral response. The first comment to this individual ratioed them. This is from War Crime saying, you must be a communist, getting 282 likes. Yep. Dancer says, obviously the baby said Hitler did nothing wrong telepathically, which is what started it, getting 222 likes. Dr. Moon says, you're an idiot, getting 45 likes. Banana Republic says, quote, not likely, Democrats are pieces of shit, getting 90 likes. And again, 317 responses to Mr. Redacted. You also have Tommy Lauren getting 7,000 likes, saying, quote, I don't know why any decent person chooses to live in a blue city like this. It's hellhole filled with ugly misfits who hate you and hate this country. Get to a red state and leave the purple-haired asylums, getting 7,000 likes. Now, that being said, even red states have deep blue cities. I suspect partially because government employees and people on government handouts will consistently vote for a bigger, more bloated, I would argue less efficient government. So again, even if you go to a red state, I mean, shoot, look at Texas. I mean, Austin is as blue as Seattle, if not maybe more. I mean, most cities, or shitties as I call them, are deeply blue. Now, you also have mirthful moments saying, quote, in nature, poisonous creatures will often develop bright colors that warn of their toxicity. This got 1.2 thousand likes, and oh, I'm sorry, I should put a visual disclaimer. This is a picture debatably more viscerally disgusting than my face, just saying something, in which you have a compilation of, I was about to say women, men, hard to tell, but they all have very short neon colored hair, which, oh Lord knows I'm overdue for a haircut. I'll get on the schedule one of these days. But yeah, they also have the cow rings, which I don't know why 98% of all dating profiles seem to have that these days. But yeah, very short hair, gender androgynous looking individuals, mostly overweight, and very much with the unique, or I would say stupid looking glasses frames. Again, those industries must be doing great. I mean, there's probably been more purple and blue hair dye sold in the past 48 months, or the past 48 years combined. I mean, that industry has to be just booming. Scrolling down more and more. Funky Beach says Democrats are the party of anger. And this is a screenshot from a viral clip, I think went pretty popular Q4 2024, in which you have a, most likely college liberal white woman. Well, I can tell most of that by the picture, but she's literally yelling at a toddler, maybe 2 years old, about a foot from its face. Getting 1.4 thousand likes. Greta Eagleman simply said these people are insufferable, getting 1,000 likes. Let's see, not seeing too many contrarian statements here. Pretty much everyone's in agreement. And yeah, it'll be interesting to see if these, people ever stop harassing innocent folks. But as if you needed yet another reason not to live, in a downtown area. I mean, here's another one. But as always, let me know your thoughts in the comments, because it'd be fascinating to hear what you have to say. Other interesting cultural news, you have Episcopal priest video compilation showing why most people don't go to church anymore. Now, this is brought to us thanks to End Wokeness. Ooh, I was going to say there you can see the priests with their unique attire. It's a nice way of saying stupid. Well, End Wokeness says, quote, why is the Episcopal Church attendance down by 43% in a decade? Which I would say it's also not individual to that church. Many churches have gone Bud Light route where they thought, I don't know if this is because they're getting certain money from certain, people, or it's because they thought, well, original clientele or original, patrons, well, they're moving on, as in, dying off, and we need to find some new clients or, new people to come to our flock, so to say. And they tried a different marketing method by leaning into leftism, and turns out not to be working too well. They're gaining new clients, but not at the rate that would actually stop the bleeding from people leaving as well as passing away. Or perhaps they would say completing their journey, whatever vernacular you prefer. It's about 18 seconds long, obviously insufferable. You have a priest with a rainbow sash. Sandals, though, I'll give him some credit. He is not wearing socks with the sandals, which of course, I mean, that's ridiculous that some people would ever do that. But without too much delay.
I'm an Episcopal priest. Of course we'll do your gay wedding.
I'm an Episcopal priest. Of course women can be priests.
I'm an Episcopal priest. Of course I offer free walk-in therapy all day.
We're Episcopal priests. Of course we know your pronouns.
We're Episcopal priest. We don't read the Bible. We don't know what God originally stood for or any of the ideals. Now, this went moderately viral, got about 606,000 views and 19,000 likes. One of the first comments come to us thanks to Gunther Eagleman saying, quote, they're reaching against the scripture and the smart people know, getting 624 likes. Our favorite contrarian, the gas stove, says, quote, this is what happens when authoritarians like Trump take control. They refuse to use someone's pronouns, effectively denying the LGBTQ2S plus existence. I appreciate the priests who use the correct pronouns. getting 19 likes and 79 comments, reaffirming that being a contrarian is very much popular. And again, if you go to this person's profile, they literally say that, they're clickbaiting, they're a professional gaslighter, masturbator. I suppose they're a fishing aficionado. And let's see if this person got ratioed. The Bad Kelpie says, enjoy your butt sex club. And what's this? It's not the Catholic Church, getting 14 likes. So he's not ratioed by number of likes, but number of comments. Someone has Winnie the Pooh who says, well, there it is, the dumbest effing thing I've read all day, getting 1 like. Let's see. A lot of people just say, what happened to you? You're weird, you're disgusting. Going back to the main comment section, you have Lori Ann saying, because they're preaching ideology instead of the Bible, their new religion is LGBTQ ideology, getting 460 likes. Yes. Going down more and more. Fist Punch Skull says, because Jesus didn't like gay people, getting 37 likes. Which, I mean, no, Jesus was literally accepting of everyone, but there's a difference between acceptance and, encouragement, so to say. Scrolling down more and more, or actually looking at the responses to this, Point Break says, absolutely not, Jesus loves everyone, getting 5 likes. Fat Boy Knows says he loves them, but he hates their sins, getting 1 like. Leroy Jenkins, oh, I didn't say that right. Leroy Jenkins says, quote, Jesus loves gay people, he hates their sin, he wants them to go forth and sin no more, getting 6 likes. Going back to the main comments section, Gina Albert says, when a church changes their values to match the current culture, they're not much following the Bible, they're following the lost, getting 59 likes. Fox Pro Maga says, quote, the Episcopal Church nowadays teaches contrary things to the scripture that it says, you're supposed to love sinners, but disavow the sin. The Episcopal Church is welcoming sin with open arms. Wokeism doesn't work. If they reverse course, attendance would grow by leaps and bounds, getting 95 likes. I actually don't think it would grow by leaps and bounds. They do need to do something different. I mean, shoot, the Catholic Church is not great at marketing either. I mean, few of them are. But again, the trend of church attendance in the United States overall has been decreasing. They're trying new methodology or ideology in this case, but it's clearly not working because even with their new ideology, attendance is continuing to crash. And I would argue you're actually alienating more of the people who are more in line with the biblical actual teachings. But again, that is a cultural issue in the United States, I believe. I think there's a lot of upside to religion, obviously help build humanity. And I think it's one of the most exceptional blueprints to building a good person, so to say. But yeah, I think a big culture, a lot of the issues in the United States are partially because of the lack of community, as well as the lack of church attendance and lack of faith. So again, Catholic Church got, they got a new pope, or so they should be better at marketing and building it back up. Who sees if it will? But let me know your thoughts and comments, because as always, be fascinated to hear what you have to say. Now, going over to the political part of the podcast, you have Mayor Frey clip of crying at George Floyd's funeral years ago going viral yet again. As it was recently George Floyd's anniversary of passing away. As it brought to us thanks to End Wokeness, and he says, quote, looking back at clips from the peak woke is so surreal. It's almost hard to believe this isn't a collective fever dream. Mayor Frey at George Floyd's funeral. And geez Louise, this got 5.8 million views and 58,000 likes, and it's about 46 seconds of insufferability. But we'll get through it together, in theory. No promises.
You don't have to worry, and don't you be afraid. Joy comes in the morning.
Be real. Tears.
Troubles, they don't last always. For there's a friend named Jesus who will wipe your tears away. And if your heart is broken,
Kneeling at the casket.
just lift your hands and say,
Jeez. Yeah. It's fascinating here. It's fascinating to see the left constantly turn the worst of society into martyrs. A career criminal, a career drug addict, who most famously, I'd argue, robbed a pregnant woman at gunpoint. That's who they build statues of. Ridiculous, yet that's what they do. Now, one of the first comments comes to us thanks to Paul Zupa. He says, quote, Mayor Frey shed more tears than he did ever for any of his constituents who fell victim of the epidemic of the bow crime in Minneapolis, which I suppose is an acronym for black on white, getting 427 likes. Livercrat Media TM, well, he says, quote, I can't believe we've even went through that timeline. Absolutely disgusting display of politicians pretending to care. All that they I can't speak today. If you click that subscribe button, it may very well help with my speaking aptitudes. When I first started the show, anyone tuned in made family. But as I slowly but surely gain more subscribers, I've spoken a little bit better. Low bar. But if you can get it, go ahead and click that button. I greatly appreciate it. Livercap Media TM again said, quote, I can't believe we even went through this timeline. Absolutely disgusting display of a bunch of politicians pretending to care, all so they can remain relevant and keep stuffing in their pockets. Peak clown world, getting 600 likes. Mirthful Moment says this, and you have a picture of Thomas Sowell juxtaposition with a picture, or sorry, not Clarence Thomas, juxtaposition with a picture of George Floyd. Says, ask yourself why they've been encouraging to look up to the man on the left instead of the man on the right. Getting 2.2 thousand likes, which, yes, based Supreme Court justice actually, read things about the founding fathers and Constitution, versus, George Floyd, who's, again, career criminal who made everyone's lives worse around him. Getting 2,000 likes. Also have Crazy Vibes saying, quote, peak white liberal mental illness on display. Weeping over a man they never met while ignoring thousands of victims and riots that followed. These are the same people called you brainwashed for loving America. The cult of wokeness requires public displays of emotion. Getting 2.6 thousand likes. Yep. Western Lensman says, quote, pathetic doesn't even begin to describe it. There you can see Nancy Pelosi and her cronies wearing the African shawl or sash, I forget what you call it, all bowing in D.C. Getting 3.3 thousand likes. Scrolling down more and more, you have God and Country saying, quote, or it's not a meme, but it's a picture. It says, quote, the month of June is now declared Veteran Appreciation Month by We the People, getting 559 likes. Captive Dreamer says, quote, the tears are probably genuine. That's the most insane part. What a lunatic, getting 3.2 thousand likes. Scrolling down more and more. Flap says, this is why the difference in perspective is insurmountable. You have a picture of George Floyd. It says, George Floyd, career criminal, violent felon, served in prison, drug dealer, died while high on fentanyl and a resisting arrest. They left declares him a national hero. They have Ashley Babbitt, who's a wife, Air Force veteran, served in Iraq, small business owner, killed while protesting voter fraud at National's Capitol, and they say she deserves to die, gaining 788 likes. Crazy Vibes says the person crying is Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Frey, gaining 280 likes, which, again, shouldn't be too surprised. Minneapolis is like the most left state in the whole union. If you look at, if you were to break it out by county, and shoot, even California was more red than Minnesota, which is pretty crazy. You also have I Love American News saying, quote, where the woke lived before the 70s. There's a mental institution from The Simpsons getting 345 likes. And 2 says, quote, these leftists walked into a church and knelt to someone other than Jesus, yet they still continue to swear up and down like they never actually worshiped Floyd, getting 1.8 thousand likes. No, I mean, actually, to this day, I think most of them will still say George. They'll claim he was a good person. George, I mean, they built statues of him all over. CLM says, quote, this is beyond bizarre. He doesn't even know Floyd, yet kneeling and looks like sobbing when told fraud, getting 391 likes. A lot of people are highlighting the autopsy of George Floyd, where it's, clearly drug overdose. You also have the conservative alternative say, quote, Democrats seem to find the worst members of society and create mini cults around them. It's weird and getting weirder every day. There you can see George Floyd, you can see Luigi, then you have Carmelo Anthony, getting 442 likes. And a lot of people are using cartoons and AI images of George Floyd being basically squished by a fentanyl pill. We also have the underground saying, quote, imagine being so deep in performative politics that you turn a funeral into a campaign audition for the woke Olympics, getting 173 likes. Which, I mean, that actually, it shouldn't be, that's really common. Now, I think this meme is one of the most popular ones when it comes to George Floyd or crime statistics. However, a couple of these have been crossed out and proven or been disproven, but I apologize. I do not remember which specific one. But this is a meme of George Floyd saying, quote, the media and left have made George Floyd into a martyr, but who is he really? In 1998, he had 10 months in prison for armed robbery. 2002, 8 months in prison for cocaine. 2004, 10 months in prison for cocaine. 2005, 10 months in prison for cocaine. 2007, 5 years for armed robbery of a pregnant woman in her home. When he was killed, he was high on meth, getting ready to drive a car and possibly kill your kid. Too bad the pregnant woman didn't have a gun. Getting 337 likes. And again, I forget, there's 1 or 2 of those lines that are not accurate. However, I do apologize, I do not remember off the top of my head. But yeah, it's one of those peak theatrics of leftism. But it'll be interesting to see if do they try to pivot away from that? It doesn't seem like it, but let me know your thoughts and comments, because as always, be fascinated to hear what you have to say. I'm going over to the business blunder of the day of Ford recalling another 1 million vehicles as the recall is seeing to mount left and right. Now, this is brought to us thanks to Motor1.com, specifically Alan Anthony, who's a writer over there. And you can see the Ford Bronco, and I was about to say all of its glory. Man, that's a joke since they've had, what was it, like 15 recalls for that one vehicle alone? It's somehow still on the road and somehow operational. I suppose we should be impressed by that. Now, they say, quote, Ford recalls another 1 million vehicles. All stems from issue from a backup camera. Dang it. Thanks, Obama. I'm actually only partially kidding. He was the one who pushed through the order that forced all manufacturers to have a rear-facing camera in the United States. Which, you could argue is good intentions, but also increase the price of vehicles or the cost of goods sold for everyone, which is especially bad for people who are low income. But I partially digress. Now, they say, quote, another week, another massive Ford recall. This time, the company is recalling just over 1 million vehicles in the U.S. due to an issue with the backup camera. The center infotainment screen may display a frozen image followed by a black screen when in reverse, thereby increasing the risk of a crash. Yes, that is true. The recall affects a large range of Ford Motor Company models from both the Ford and Lincoln brands. The affected vehicles are, geez Louise, pretty much everyone. The Ford Bronco, the Ford Edge, the Ford Escape, the Ford Expedition, the Ford F-150, Ford F-150, which is how I always hear it inside my head, the Ford Mustang, the real Mustang, the Ford Mustang E-Mach, or Mach-E, the bastardized one, the Ford Ranger, the Ford Super Duty, the Ford Transit, the Lincoln Corsair, not the computer company, though, be a cool collab, wasn't it? Then you also have the Lincoln MKX and the Lincoln Navigator. So pretty much everything they make. Now they say, quote, more than half the cars being recalled are the F-150 pickups, which account for 527,371 recalled vehicles, which is not great because, again, Ford make a lot of things, not many things well, but one of the most profitable and important things they make are trucks. That's pretty much what the company's become when they started, a couple years ago, they killed all the cars, except the good Mustang. It's the most profitable, important vehicle. That is you. That's the brand of Ford. It's the face of Ford is F-150. Even that is being recalled, which is ridiculous. They also note that the Ford Edge, the automaker no longer produces, but it did account for 157,506 of the 1 million vehicles, followed by the 136,938 Transit vans and the 104,394 Bronco SUVs. Here you can see another picture of the Ford Bronco, which does look pretty cool off-road. I do appreciate it's a one SUV in North America. I believe, correct me in the comments if I'm wrong, they can buy with the option of having a stick shift, which is all too rare these days. So I appreciate for that. They know that according to the National Highway Traffic and Safety Administration, Part 373 of the Safety Recall Report, the cause for the problem is due to, quote, improper operational sequencing within the wireless communication system subsystem of the end of the sync software. Fancy. Ford began investigating the issue earlier this year and was able to isolate the specific versions to Sync 4 Software Accessory Protocol Interface Module, or the APIM. Now, they also know that the Ford Motor Company vehicles with over-the-air capability can receive over-the-air updates. Owners can update the feature to have their vehicle taken to a dealer where the service technician will perform a software update. Fix will update the ATM software to 2.0 or above. Ford said it is aware of one allegation of a minor crash related to the issue. However, it is unaware of any injuries related to the backup camera. Owners should receive a notification of the recall mid-June, or just tune into the show where we usually cover the recalls weeks or months before they actually mailed out. They say that, quote, until then, the car still has mirrors. Which, yes, that's true, but still doesn't help with that blind spot that a lot of people cry about and that they need the camera for, which I would argue the rear view camera is a luxury, not a necessity, but in the United States, because of the law, it is legally needed. So Ford has yet another recall, and we'll see how quick of a way this is to update the vehicle when you go to the dealership, get it fixed. But yeah, Ford leading the world in recalls yet again. Ford, I gotta say, you are certainly still the business blunder of the day. Thank you everyone for taking the time to tune in today. Again, trying to get to 6,000 subscribers by the end of the month, so if you click that button, I greatly appreciate it. Also, give me a thumbs up, thumbs down, or comment. It's a great way to give me some additional feedback, letting me know how I can make the show better and better. Lastly, don't forget to take time to tell your family, tell your friends, tell your coworkers, heck, tell your enemies, anyone and everyone. Just stay safe and fight the good fight.